I think it's so easy, particularly in spaces like cybersecurity, where it's very tech heavy. Like you have people that are deep in tech, right? They have to be intimately familiar with risks, with threat detection, with ins and outs, like protocols, global environments, different regulations that are happening all the time. They have to understand how technology applies. The what problem are we solving for, or who feels it most, or where, is something that can again get a little bit lost in translation. So documenting those, asking a lot of those types of questions. I've always found that a problem-led mindset requires permission to question the plan as well.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Leadership Exchange podcast. My name is Tracy. You can follow me on LinkedIn at Tracy S. Lee or on X at Lady Lee. And I'm so excited to be here today. Tanya, we have been trying to do this for at least 7, 8, 9, maybe 9 months now.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, it's very true. It's a long awaited podcast with you.
I know. But if you think about it in quarters, it's like, well, it's only been 3 quarters, so it
Sure.
hasn't been that long.
Yeah, I mean, we could have made a whole human by now, but I definitely.
That's true. That is very true. Um, so Tanya and I met when she was a VP of Innovation over at DocuSign, and we chatted. And Tanya, you're also a member of Chief, which I absolutely love, and you're in Seattle, and so welcome, connected to the community. And I really wanted to invite Tanya on today to chat about everything she does. Tanya is currently the VP of Strategy for the digital resilience business at Cisco, and Tanya, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here again, Tracy. Thank you. When we first met, I remember it was just like this immediate connection between
I
us.
know,
So
same.
it's an honor to be here and have this conversation with you. Um, so I left DocuSign actually just recently. I've been at Cisco for about 3 months, and I'm leading a really important part of the business, bringing in kind of the customer perspective into the product organization. And so I sit within product and technology, primarily in their cybersecurity software business. So Cisco had recently acquired Splunk, which is a beloved company in this space, really data oriented. And as we had kind of spoken about in our prep, huge focus on AI right now. So lots of moving parts, and I'm really excited to be a part of it and apply some of what's happening in the market and in the space to the next wave of digital resilience through the Cisco network and ecosystem.
I love that. There is so much. It's such a great time to be alive right now, and especially like sort of, I don't know, do we call this the peak of our careers? But I mean, it's very exciting to see what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years in the sort of like AI and technology space.
I know. I mean, I guess we could have said the same thing when the World Wide Web was a thing, which is kind of weird that it feels very like it ages me a bit. But it's kind of a similar feeling, right? Where there's something so disruptive and so global and so connected and interwoven
Yeah.
and also complex and world changing. And so it's excellent to be an adult as a part of this change,
Yes.
and be in
Yes.
the working environment in a place where we can solve real problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Well, tell us a little bit more about like, what you've done before, how you got to this point, what you're passionate about.
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the things that you and I connected on early on is that I always bring this up, that I'm a second generation. I say first and a half just because I was born here, then lived there, and then came back, immigrant, and raised here in Seattle. And I think my career has been super unique. I've found a lot of women in the Chief Network that kind of went through the same thing, where it was quite nonlinear. So I went from sales at a television station to my first venture in tech at Amazon, grew into some leadership roles in product, go to market, customer innovation at DocuSign, and then now at Splunk Cisco. And I think that what ties it kind of all together, and to answer the question of what I'm really passionate about, it's solving real problems. And I think where I've found my niche is doing that in moments of change. So I really gravitate toward inflection points. Most recently at DocuSign, that was with new categories. So really establishing, a new lens, a new vision in an evolving category, naming that category, working really closely with analysts in the market to validate that category. It could be new technologies. So again, kind of this new wave of what we're doing here at Cisco. It could be new ways to work, which was very much the post-COVID, landscape. And so I've spent really the last few years bringing intelligent agreement management to life with the team, and now I'm focused on how AI and machine data can transform how we operate and make particularly security decisions, but decisions generally at scale.
I love that. Yeah, we're definitely deep, deep, deep in the DocuSign IAM ecosystem.
Yes, you are. You're a pioneer. You're not deep, you're a pioneer. You're both deep and wide.
It is very exciting. I mean, technology generally is again very exciting right now in this age. And everything just seems so fast, don't you think? Like it just seems like, you know, gosh, I look right now and it's July and I just think, wow, where did the last few months go? But everyone's been hustling and everything feels so urgent
Everything
right
does.
now. Why is that?
Oh my gosh, it's so true. It seems like every 20 seconds, Claude drops some new, package and integrations built for whatever industry, and you're like, you know, or there's a new, compute framework or whatever that might be. And honestly, I don't think the speed is just a perception. I don't think it's just what you and I feel. I think it's very structural. So we're not going to be dealing with maybe what we're used to, which is digital transformation. You could go 5-year roadmap and kind of build these horizons and talk a lot about what you would commit to at large. I think every company is now a tech company, and AI has kind of shifted this game from optimization. How do we optimize the thing that we've built to reinvention? And there's going to be like several layers of reinvention throughout a company's life cycle. And so I think to answer the core of your question, which is where the urgency is coming from, I think it's from two things. One is the pace in which generative AI is lowering the barrier to experimentation. So there are some brilliant people doing brilliant things. There are machines doing things that we never thought possible. And so experimentation becomes something that is at the speed of light. We just haven't ever seen something like this before. And the second is macro pressure, which we can't ignore, right? Economic, geopolitical, certainly competitive. There's so many, like niche or phantom kind of AI companies that are coming up. And it's forcing companies to show near-term impact instead of just that long-term growth. And so we're seeing leaders have to place bets a whole lot faster, definitely with less clarity because we don't know what's going to change overnight or what we could create overnight. And then I think, that creates a really palpable tension in the space. It definitely takes a really special kind of leader or leaders and certainly some really great minds to group think and bring some really unique technology to the surface.
We'll be back to the episode in a second, but first I'd like to acknowledge the team behind the channel, This.Labs. We're seeing 3x to 5x productivity improvements with our teams and clients using tools like Cursor, Claude Code, and GitHub Copilot. We help teams adopt these technologies and get max value out of them through strategic partnerships, trainings, and other software engineering services. Check us out at ai.this.co. Thanks, now back to the video.
It is true. It's so exciting because I remember you were talking about when the World Wide Web was created, and I definitely remember this inflection point. I think it was 2007, 2008, where mobile.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden, you're not printing out MapQuest printouts. So then, you don't need a printer anymore, and maybe that was like the death of printers, right? Having everything on your smartphone, and then just being able to navigate New York, with your phone was so amazing. And then now, just like you're talking about, there is this opportunity to just establish yourself. I mean, I think maybe for the past 10 years, it's been, there's another of the same thing. There's another of the same thing. There's another food ordering app. There's another food review, whatever. There's another, I guess, when you talk about Yelp or Instagram and things like that, maybe again, you're talking about the 2010s-ish time frame when those things were being established. But finally, all of a sudden, it's like the Wild West, if you will,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah. But to your point, I think we're seeing um, some really um, some energy coalescing into just a
Hmm.
few companies that are leading the way in this transformation, and then a lot of companies that are looking to apply their leading technologies. I mean, if you look at even what Jensen's doing at NVIDIA, it's just leaps and bounds from where so many companies or great minds have gone, and so many companies like Microsoft or Cisco or whatnot are partnering with companies like NVIDIA so that they can lock arms in this transformation. I think there's really there's some powerful stuff that's going to start taking shape that, we're just starting to think about, let alone, implement.
Yeah.
But it's true. I think the mobile thing is so funny, because just like you were saying, the MapQuests of the world are kind of a moot point. Like we aren't printing that or faxing that or anything
Right.
anymore. Um, the Uber Eats or the applications that are coming out are all interconnected. They're all collaborating with one another. They're built together to form an ecosystem, which, you look at maps as something as dynamic as like a Google Maps. It's now plugged into something like Uber, where you can get the status of a drive or the time in which you think you're going to arrive, or maybe a number of stops or the number of people who want to join. You can see whether or not there's been an accident in real time. I mean, there's satellite applied, there's certainly AI applied, and there's alternate routes that are provided to you. There's so much that's happening in this dynamic, collaborative daily life that I don't even know that we're all intimately aware of because we're just kind of going.
And you
But
just sort of expect it, right? Because I never
yeah,
thought about the interconnectivity part. You just kind of assume. Like, for
yeah,
example, with Uber knowing, hey, it's going to take them 15 minutes to get there, you just kind of assume, duh, because
yeah.
you're so used to looking on your phone and knowing, hey, it's going to take 42 minutes for me to get someplace. Like, of course, Uber knows, but you're right. I mean, it is these large companies sort of collaborating together for this big experience, this experience that we call life, I suppose.
Yes,
Um, and
yeah.
we talk a lot about, sort of like how I mean, you can kind of see right now, I think, as a consumer, how AI is sort of starting to creep into our everyday lives, if you
Yes.
will. But what's your take on using AI internally for collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, to your point, the consumer behavior is changing. Everything
Mm-hmm.
that we're doing just requires a sense of
Mm-hmm.
AI, whether that's intrinsic in everything we do, it's just implied, it's a assisted experience, or it's something that's happening in the background, or it could be something really explicit, like with intelligent agreement management, and you're actually able to see, suggestions that you can apply directly to a set of documents, whatever that it could look. The span is really wide at this point. But AI, I think, particularly in tech, is it's being applied to customer service. That's the kind of main table stakes space where I think as consumers, we don't want to dial a 1-800 number all the time. Companies don't necessarily always need to put bodies on the problem. There are different ways for people to get access to information more efficiently and to solve problems really quickly. And that lowers, obviously OpEx. There's so much that benefits both the consumer as well as the business in applying AI for customer service. But I think that there's a lot of untapped power in using AI to rewire internal collaboration. So that could be like connection points of product sales support and ops. It could be, enterprise scale. And I'll give you a couple of examples of what I mean. I think context is missing a lot of the time when people are threading between teams. It could be about a customer interaction. It could be about a prioritization or a new request for some attention if a customer, for example, is dealing with some sort of an issue. And at times you think, okay, I'm going to go to the single source of truth and that person's going to take care of it. But as you know, everything is connected. So once somebody maybe builds something, you have to create a go-to-market around it. You have to make a market assessment. There's what are the potential incentive plans that are associated? So, at enterprise scale, I do think that you can lose the thread between the teams. I think AI can restore that. It can surface relevant insights. It can connect dots between what's being built and what's being asked for. I'm a huge proponent of patterns. When I was leading innovation at DocuSign, one of the things I would always say is insight begets foresight. You would get so much insight with patterns at scale, but they were so human oriented. Like we had to capture notes over time. Now you can have AI do that. And I think, especially as it relates to communication between teams, you start to see the benefit of institutional memory and decision intelligence. So it's not just chatbots, it's long-term benefits that businesses and customers will ultimately have when you can capture it, apply it, make decisions against it. So I'm a huge proponent.
Yes. It's I was thinking about two things. One of the funnier things that was going on in my mind was just thinking about how one of my colleagues here at this dot, he sometimes there's a meeting and the note taker will join. And so he'll just have conversations with the note taker, and the readouts will be so funny about like his dog going for a walk and this and that and whatever. But it'd be funny if all these insights, let's say, your note takers are all fed into something, and then somebody's like, wow, they just had a 40-minute conversation about hamburgers.
I know. It's so true. But then, even that, like, it's funny and we can laugh about it. But even that is like, there's valuable insight in understanding how people in your business are spending their time. Is there value in those people who are like relationship oriented? Are they the connectors that you need to drive
I
business?
love that. That would be so amazing because, I mean, I'm sure, maybe at some point in time we're going to live in a world where there's ambient listening 24/7, and HR can sort of use it for good, if you will, right? And say like, okay, the sentiment. They can start using it for sentiment talents, like, oh, people are happy or people are not happy, or wow, we just had like a thing, and we just had an all hands, and everybody is so unhappy, or there was like 70% increase in calls or whatever. It's interesting to see how that potentially will play out in the future.
It's so true. There's definitely a delicate balance between privacy and like general ambient listening, and I think that there's a way to do it. I'm not in HR, so I can't give you the intimate details, but there's think about that. Yeah, like that value of the sentiment analysis is huge. We have to keep a pulse on what our employees are feeling and make sure, innovation really stems from people being satisfied and feeling like they have an innovative, safe space to experiment and ultimately deliver. So I love that. I love that.
But it is going to change how I think humans generally interact. I don't know if you saw, there's this article out recently going around talking about how I think it's Gen Alpha or Gen Z having the blank stare. I forgot what they called it, but there's like a blank stare that I saw it on Instagram somewhere. There's some sort of blank stare, and people like, have you seen it where they're just gazing out, not looking at anything, and like not engaging with you? Like, what is that? And then that generation retorts back and says, we just don't want to engage in conversations that don't matter. And so it's like an interesting perspective, right? But then you think about it, okay, AI is everywhere, you have ambient listening everywhere. Does that mean, the next generation gets quieter? Does that mean it's like more nuanced, like it's more body language driven because everything's already always listening? So it's going to be interesting how it just changes humanity as well.
Oh my gosh, that is fascinating. I just finished a podcast. I was listening to a podcast. It was on Dax Shepard, Armchair Expert, and there was a woman who came on and talked about the science and art of conversation. And it made me think about that. So you might like that, Tracy. I'll send it to you when we're done. But then the question is like, what matters? Yeah. And what matters to generation over generation? What happens to conversation? What happens to connectivity or unification?
It's no longer like the CEO going to lunch because he or she doesn't have to, because they have a dashboard and they can just pull it up.
Yeah.
How are my people feeling?
So that's even like emphasizes the importance of AI when it comes to context. Like, not AI for necessarily prompts, but AI for context.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when context goes, relationships break. When context goes, your business decisions, aren't necessarily whole. You get fragmented parts of wholes.
Hmm.
Oh, I feel like we could talk about that for another hour.
I know.
So interesting.
And we're talking about sort of like internal teams using AI or utilizing AI internally within your companies. You have been privileged to kind of like work across so many large companies, and right now you're focused on aligning product and GTM teams and stuff like that. Like, how are you doing that? It's sort of like in this new age.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I would say two big ways. And I might end up answering two questions at once, but forgive me, I just think that they're connected. I think first is shared goals. It's kind of an approach to a playbook I always apply, and it has been a privilege. I've learned a lot along the way. I think it's easy to go like, oh, let's align on MQLs, like number of, or like let's align on number of releases. I want to see like a 20% conversion on the things that I request, like in the backlog or whatever. And those are outcomes. But if we have a joint definition of value, like what does success ultimately look like for a customer? Then we've established something that we can look at leading indicators together along the way, and that really does align the teams in a much more healthier fashion. At times, that takes a tsunami's worth of change because it's ticket response a lot of the time. But in fast-paced environments like we're in now, the joint definition of what value looks like is important because how you get to that value could change rapidly in a matter of weeks. And then I think because of that, the second recommendation I always have is to have live working cadences. So I think embedding product leads who can really translate in real time in working meetings, not just like quarterly readouts where you have a unilateral delivery. It's about weekly value alignment. Do we have sessions that are keeping us agile? Are we sharing the narrative? Have we invited customers particularly into that messy middle when people are working on the how do we create what it is that we're ultimately going to deliver, and not necessarily bringing in customers after the roadmap is baked. Like they need to be influencing as we go. And so that helps us with the third point, which is developing the narrative. The narrative, that we tell externally has to match the truth of what's shipping. It's not, it's not a mirror or it's not a megaphone. It's more of a mirror. And so, all of these things you can do really efficiently. You could do them in an agile fashion. You just have to have the right mechanisms. Those could be advisory councils. They could be like design partner programs, pilots, labs. It could just be telemetry that AI helps you gather about like behavioral insights. But those spaces and places where you're working together to validate and refine what value ultimately looks like creates intimacy and it makes for visible and actionable feedback along the journey. And that's really important. Otherwise, product and go-to-market can easily break, and one is, left floundering or in kind of a crisis. Ultimately, who suffers in the end?
Mm-hmm.
It's the customer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Any tips? I mean, you've done this at scale in multiple organizations. So any tips for rolling these types of things out?
Yeah, I mean, asking a lot of questions, right? I think asking teams like, what problem are we solving for? I think it's so easy, particularly in spaces like cybersecurity, where it's very tech heavy. Like you have people that are deep in tech, right? They have to be intimately familiar with risks, with threat detection, with ins and outs, like protocols, global environments, different regulations that are happening all the time. They have to understand how technology applies. But the what problem are we solving for, or who feels it most, or where, is something that can again get a little bit lost in translation. So documenting those, asking a lot of those types of questions. I've always found that a problem-led mindset requires permission to question the plan as well. As in large orgs, that's a lot of work. Like that could be cultural work. Like I said, a tsunami's worth of change at times. But if you have leaders that are rewarding clarity over control, then that energy can shift. So you stop talking about just these deliverables, but you're talking about those value-driven outcomes, and that I think is where innovation really does live, and it does. I mean, I've seen that it creates a healthier and happier work environment as well. So going back to that sentiment.
Yes. I love
Yeah.
that because I think everybody wants purpose in life, right? So if you're giving people purpose, meaning they're understanding the customer, they're being more collaborative, and they have sort of like one mission. Versus sometimes I feel like, especially in large organizations, sort of moving around, having meetings, and you're accomplishing something, but how does it tie into their bigger whole? But, I
Yeah.
think this all goes to, again, this sort of like alignment and focusing on the customer that you're talking about.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. It's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Well, this was such a fun conversation. Is there anything else you're excited about right now? I mean, you're doing so much new, cool stuff. I'm sure
Yeah.
it's
I know.
tiring and fun at the same time.
It is. I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface, and just when I think I understand something, there are 8 different things that are happening, and I think that that's probably one of the things I'm most excited about, Tracy. It's that there's this intersection right now that I'm learning so much about, and it's that machine data, AI, and decision making. And I think for the first time, we're moving beyond these like reactive dashboards that we were kind of talking about, pull up a dashboard and like see what we do, but more real time, proactive intelligence. We see it as consumers on a daily basis at times without knowing it. But when it comes to large scale enterprise software, it's no longer kind of what happened, like let me see and triage. It's about like what's about to happen and what can I do about it proactively. I think that's a game changer. And where it gets even more exciting is when you put humans in the loop. So if I were to give you just a really quick story, we were working with a customer recently, and they were using telemetry, some data they were detecting anomalies in their infrastructure. And while like the alerts were really useful, they lacked context. So their teams were just getting bombarded with noise, as you can imagine. But when you embed human feedback loops directly into the system, it allows frontline analysts to train models in real time. It allows them to triage and maybe rethink the way they're triggering various workflows. And so suddenly, instead of drowning in false positives, they're designing intelligence that works with the way they think. So that's kind of the shift. It's not just AI for people, but it's AI with people. And I think that's a playing field that's going to introduce new talent to both technical and analytical roles. I think that, there's a lot of FUD around, it's going to, remove jobs. But man, I think what it'll do to extract value and give, opportunity for the future. Like people are going to bridge these worlds. And I think that people will thrive. They're not just going to chase velocity. They're going to create a ton of clarity. They're going to connect and really build, to your point, purpose for what matters. And that's what I'm here for. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to do it with you. I know you're
Yes. There's never been a time, right? The web being formed, mobile happening. I mean, 2015 was sort of where, there was another sort of like Web 2.0, if you call it, right? I mean, I guess it was 2015 Web 2 or was 2008? 2015 was more when, there was a lot of sort of like new technologies, right? So,
yes.
I mean, web something, whatever you wanted to call it. But yeah, there's never been a time that I remember that it didn't create more jobs,
Right.
and more opportunities for all of us. So, well, amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. Where do we find you online if we want to learn more?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Tanya Fadul. I'm happy to connect with you. As well as if you're a Chief member, I'd love to connect with you via Chief.
Amazing. I do need to, I've been tired lately because I've been traveling a lot, but I do need to reconnect with my chief ladies. So,
Do it.
Yes.
We welcome you with open arms.
Well, thank you again. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see y'all next time.